What's up, EXP? I'm Camryn Cisneros, your chair for the Pride Network, and happy Pride Month. I am so excited. As we're coming into June 2025, we're kicking off the first week with an action-packed conversation. And I just want to start this off by saying this isn't your typical panel. This is a conversation that I wish I could have heard when I was first starting out. One that reminds you that your identity isn't a barrier. It's your advantage. We name this Powerfully You because leadership isn't about titles. It's about showing up. It's about leading with identity, not apology. And today I am so honored to share this space with 4 incredible leaders who are doing just that, showing up fully, leading boldly, and creating impact through who they are and not who they're expected to be. So welcome, guys. I'm so excited to have you on here today. Let's start this off by having each one of you share your name, role, and one word that defines how you lead today. Holly, I'll let you kick us off.
Well, I'm Holly Mabery. I'm the Senior Vice President for Brokerage Operations. And probably passion is where I would start as far as leadership right now.
I love that.
Oh, I can go next. I'm Tali Prospert, and I am the Innovation Enablement Lead. It's a new title, so it's a mouthful. But I would absolutely say authenticity is where I would start with everything.
Love it. Kaylie?
Hi, y'all. My name is Kaylie Lynn Miller. I'm a realtor with EXP. My wife and I are known as the Property Wives in Colorado. And I would say one word that defines my leadership is freedom.
I love that.
Ooh, that's good. I get to follow that. I'm Ashley LaRocque. I'm the Vice President of Media and Production for Success Magazine. And I'm also the owner of a boutique hotel called Juniper Mountain House. And I would say leadership for me would probably be empowering.
So good.
That's a great one. Those are all really great ones. And I'm glad we ended with you, Ashley, because you're going to be the one to kick us off. You have a vast background from LA celebrity scenes to leading media at Success and now building literal tree houses and implementing policy change. What part of your journey taught you to trust your own voice, even when no one else saw the vision?
That's a great question. That's a big question. I should probably explain some of that. I'll give a little bit of context on the tree houses because people are probably like, what is that all about?
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. That's a weird outlier. My wife and I own a boutique hotel in Evergreen, Colorado, and we are building luxury tree houses on the property. So it has been quite the adventure getting these things permitted. Doesn't happen often in the United States. So it's been a fantastic journey. But to answer your question, that's trusting your own voice is really hard. I think that, when people don't see your vision, it's really intimidating. And bold ideas typically make people really uncomfortable at first. But I do think that people really do want to believe in something that's unique and something that's maybe bigger than their ideas. They just don't really want to be the ones to go first. So it's really scary. I mean, even rude in childhood, it's scary to be the person that goes first. So in my opinion, the key is not just to have the vision, but to kind of sit in it long enough to let others catch up and believe in it alongside of you because they really want to. I think that people really are looking for leaders to kind of be the trailblazers. But what specifically for myself, what allowed me to trust my own voice, I think was the process of really leaning into who I really am and what that created when I was younger and took some calculated risks, whether it was moving to Los Angeles and starting my career there, or even something like coming out. I think that shift really happens internally first, and it's really powerful and kind of propels you because once you choose to do that, your capacity really expands, and you're not spending your energy on hiding or proving something. You're spending your energy on being creative and leading people. So all in all, like that's when people start to follow you, not because you've convinced them, but because you now embody the thing that you double down, basically is what I'm saying. Double down on your truth, on your vision, and people will think that it was always a constant, and they love following that vision.
Oh, that's so true. You hit on some really good key points we're going to dive into too. And I personally relate to a lot of what you're saying. I always say that authenticity is the highest form of currency. And I showed up differently in rooms when I started being unapologetically myself and leaned into my own visions as well. So I'm really great you touched on that. Now, Holly, for you, I mean, you've led this industry long before leadership was inclusive. When you reflect on your path from agent to senior vice president of brokerage operations, what's a moment for you where being authentically yourself had made like the biggest difference?
I'll be honest, it's always scary, right? It's always going to be scary to step into who you are in every room. But every time I've leaned into that, it has always allowed me to open other doors. And I'll be honest, like there's tears, right? Like there are times where you're going to be uncomfortable. Did I say the right thing? You know, those second guessing on your head, like, does my hair look right? All of that kind of thing. The best thing that you can ever do is be yourself, because that's something that you can never, like, you'll not regret being yourself. And so in this journey, I live in a very small town, and I've experienced discrimination firsthand in a lot of different ways. I've experienced it in the industry. I've experienced it in hiring. And at the end of the day, I'm going to stand up and be who I am, but also in the hope that by doing that, it also allows me to champion others and be that vocal support for them. You have to be yourself. If you're not willing to be yourself, it's okay. Let's take a moment. Let's get grounded. Let's find that path forward. But the minute you can do that, just as Ashley was saying, the doors open. They're not the ones always you expect, but the doors open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And it's so, and when you actually implement that vision and you see it through, those people that thank you, at least for me, serve as a reflection of my hardest nights when I decided to keep going anyway, when I decided to trust myself. And when people say, Cam, like you changed my life or you made an impact, like those thank yous serve at those moments of my hardest nights when I was like struggling with my own identity and myself. And instead of giving up, I still decided to keep my nose to the grindstone and keep going. So that's so true. Thank you. For Tali, you serve on our corporate side too. You're internally known for your empathy and for your consistency. But for you, when did you realize as an ally that it wasn't just about showing support, that it was also about sharing power with others?
So I think that ultimately I have learned in my life through, I call myself like a reformed people pleaser, right? And so through that, it has taught me a lot of what I want for myself. But not only that, it's taught me that if you have a voice that carries, then you have to use it. It is a responsibility and you have to take it seriously. And so regardless of whether you want to or not, sometimes if your voice carries, you make sure that it's the loudest one in the room. And I try to do that with anything that I believe in. I try to do that for anybody that I support. People, when I was a manager, people who worked under me, it's like what you feel, I feel. Let's dig into this. Let's figure it out. And if you need somebody to speak for you, I want to be that voice. And so it has taken time, but I have learned that if I want to be treated a certain way, that I have to make sure that I'm treating other people a certain way. And so it just starts with me. And I hope that by doing it enough, right, that it'll make a difference. And, it'll trickle down like it's supposed to.
Oh, absolutely. And you've been an incredible ally for us here with the Pride Network. You've been with us for almost 2 years, and you've helped us make some monumental growth in our triumph to 20,000 members. You've been monumental to helping us out.
I love it. It's been so much fun.
And Kaylie, full circle, because I actually used to manage your teams back when I was in Colorado. You and your wife are a part of one of the most visible LGBTQ plus teams in real estate. What was your turning point from just being seen to being heard, then both in your teams and in your community?
Yeah, man, this conversation is like almost getting me teary-eyed already, just to be in a space where we can like be proud of who we are and be sharing that we're proud of who we are. Because that was a long journey. I grew up in a very religious home. I went to seminary and I was planning to become a pastor. And then I fell in love with a woman. And that kind of shifted my whole life and my whole career. And I was like, okay, am I about to lose my church, my job, my career, what I went to school for, possibly my family, majority of my friends? And I was like, yeah, I am. But it's like you said, it's tears. It's a journey, Holly. And when I first started, my wife and I, there was this one pivotal moment. I have built my business through Zillow leads. And so you never know who you're showing up to meet. And I talked to this guy on the phone, and I put the phone down. And I looked at my wife, and I was like, she comes on most of my tours with me. And I was like, maybe you should stay home for this one. Like, I just get this feeling that he's not going to love that we're a 2-woman team. And I don't know. So I went and I met with him, and the whole time I was like, this feels disgusting that I'm refusing to be the fullness of who I am. When I married my wife, the two became one, and I was hiding such a big part of myself. And for this random stranger that I'd never met before,
Right.
I came home and I was like, I don't want to do that ever again. I don't want to do that ever again. I am committed to be out and proud, the fullest version of myself. My neon pink and green is like how I dress. I've always got some rainbow on. And I'm not hiding any part of me, and that includes my wife, the better part of me, my better half. And after that, I was like, you know what? Remember when your one friend said, like, our dreams in real estate, and we want to own rental properties, and we want to own healing retreat centers all around the world for people to come and heal their pain and turn it into their purpose. He was like, you guys are like the property brothers, but you're the property wives. And I was like, yes, that's stuck. And I'm like, we're rolling with it. Like, we're going to dress in our crazy outfits, and we're going to tell the whole world, like, this is who we are. And those who love us are going to be our biggest champions. And those who don't, I don't have to pretend around them. So I'm grateful that they don't want to be around me. And since then, like, it's been fun. And I think that there's this trend on Instagram going around right now, and it's like, I almost forgot that this was the whole point. And
Yes. Yeah, I know what you're talking
like,
about.
I enjoy my life. I enjoy the work I do. I love that I do it with my wife. I love who I am. I love showing up in crazy outfits. I love that, like, when I walk into a restaurant, people are like, oh, like, are you going to a costume party? And I'm like, no, this is just how I dress because it brings me joy. And every time I do it, like you've all said, it's so scary. But when you show up and you try to hide, you succeed. No one notices you. No one pays attention. No one opens a door for you. But when you show up in your authenticity, people are like, what's happening over there? Like, that's different. I'm intrigued. Tell me more. And yeah, I think that is really.
I remember for Colorado when you represented Pride for us at the regional rally last year, and you wore the rainbow pants and stuff. You, out of every regional rally location we had, you topped the cake on visibility, representation, and you seriously glow different when you're showing up in those rooms unapologetically. So I that's amazing. That's so cool. And I'm glad you shared that too.
Okay, I actually have a really quick story to tell about that. Yesterday, I was in my office, and I like ran into the office, and I was about to run out, and I'm like, oh, hi, sorry, like, I don't know you guys. Are you new to our office? And they're like, oh, we know you. You spoke in such a powerful way. And we saw you at the EXP rally speak about how every single person that you serve in your career, you should serve as if they are the person that matters the most to you in your life. And I was like, wow, it's so cool that, like, over a year later, someone was like, oh, we know who you are because you stood out and you spoke to our heart about, like, treating people with dignity and respect. And I was like, wow.
So, that's so fulfilling to hear. Yeah. That's really, really cool. And I'm glad, because that seriously was a great turnout for that rally. And people do remember that. People remember how you make them feel, right? Yeah. And you were able to establish a connection with them, not even face to face, just being up there, being yourself and explaining your passions. And, you know, that's really, really cool. Yeah. But Holly, I'm going to pass it to you real quick. You literally make decisions that ripple across the entire company. How do you protect your own voice in rooms that weren't always built for leaders like you?
Do the right thing.
Yeah.
I mean, period. It's that simple. Like, my North Star is do the right thing. And if I'm doing the right thing, it's not about me. It's about every leadership position we're given is rented space. And so I just have the privilege of getting to sit in the chair for a time being. And so my goal or opportunity is to do the best I can by doing the right thing for the people that I've been given to be in my charge, right? Like I have to be their advocate. And so that's when I look at the real estate industry or things that we're working on, it's really about how do we do it in such an artful way. And what I mean by that is with passion, with compassion and integrity, that people go, okay, I believe in this. I will follow this. It's not about forcing anything down anybody's throat for me. It's about earning that opportunity to invite you into my space a little bit closer.
Seriously, yeah. And what I love here too is that leadership is so accessible. Holly, you have been a backbone to my support when I was first starting this out, when we had less than 1,000 members, and you were like, I'm here. How can I support you? And I think that even though we are in two different levels, two different planes, how accessible you are and how you've welcomed me into your space. I was inspired by you long before you even knew who I was yet. And so it was really cool to like really feel that and be a part of that. And like you said about rented space, like I felt that is so true. And the way you view leadership and you come into it with empathy and compassion, and it shows, and you feel it through every level. Right. And I think great leadership, even at the lowest level, it's always felt. And that's one thing I've learned so much from you, even from afar, before we even connected about that. So I'm really glad you shined a light on that. Yeah. Ashley, for you, you've produced for some of the most recognizable brands, and now you're building brands rooted in your authenticity. What have you learned about image versus integrity in that journey?
Yeah, that's been a hard journey for me. For those of you who, I instantly thought of the Enneagram, if anybody knows the Enneagram. I'm an Enneagram 3. I believe strongly in the Enneagram and like what it says about people, but 3s are challenging, mainly in the image category. We, being vulnerable here, like all the, I say challenging aspects of the 3 are like, we're very materialistic. We have like can be very egocentric when we're like not at our best. And so image is a big part of that. And I really came face to face with that when I was living in and working in Los Angeles in an environment where you're surrounded by, most people, all they care about is their image. And right. So, I think that image is hollow. I think it matters to people, but I think it lacks substance. And I think integrity equals longevity in my mind. Now, and you really need both, like, because it does matter how you put yourself out into the world. But integrity is the meat and the backbone of it. When my wife and I started this business, it was really funny. We bought this property and we turned it into a brand new hospitality experience. And we thought we would be very brand forward. So, we really worked hard on our brand, and we were like, the brand will live on its own. We will just be behind it. And we learned very quickly that all of our reviews, people mentioned us by name. And so we really, like, it was wonderful. We were flattered, but we realized very quickly that like we had to be part of it. We couldn't just be behind our brand. We had to like lean into the meat of it and say, we are part of the brand, and we shouldn't be afraid of that. And now we are much more forward facing. We check every guest in, and we respond to as many emails as we can, and we view ourselves as part of the brand. And that's the integrity piece, because when something goes wrong, we also will go and speak to a guest in person and say, hey, we really messed this up. Right. And we lead with that human connection. So I feel like I'm a Enneagram 3 at its best. I like to say I've transformed from some of that, but it's a constant challenge. And I think I've learned that maintaining a high level of integrity equals longevity in anything, in your personal life, in your business life. There's no substitute for it.
I agree with that. And I almost want to say that like the integrity, the image will follow the integrity. Because that's how I've started. Like I've operated with integrity. I didn't really have an image, and the image was kind of built around my want to connect and make an impact and to advocate, motivate, educate, serve, and guide as many people as I possibly could. and you start to realize that your brand that you build steps into the room before you do. So it's important to have the brand, because the brand steps in the room before you do. But when you're the face behind the brand and you're making that connection, those people are going to remember that experience that you gave them, and the intimacy behind like your caring and your want to truly make it a great experience for them. It shines through, and that enhances the imagery. There's so many people out there that they appear to have this great image, and then when you kind of peel it back, it, like you said, it's hollow. It's like
there's no heart. Yeah.
There's nothing behind it. So I really love that you touched on that. That's a really great way to word that. For Tali, you, like we said before, you're a leader in corporate. What's a moment where you had to advocate for someone where maybe it had been easier not to? And how did that experience shape your leadership?
I think that there's probably a lot of times that happens as a leader, right? Constantly, where you're trying to decide, okay, do we back this person up, or do we wait? And it's all about deciding the right moments to act, right? Having that discernment sometimes is super important, but it's also always everything that I've learned is because I've made some kind of mistake, right? Or I have had some kind of circumstance or situation where I go, I didn't like the outcome. I didn't like how I felt. I didn't like how I made someone else feel. And so you say, okay, then no matter what, I'm going to do the right thing, like everybody has been saying. And so I think sometimes with staff, when your team would feel a certain way, and you would say, okay, it's easier sometimes to say, okay, we're all on board with this change, let's do it. But sometimes you have to say, okay, everybody else is going along with it. If I'm going to be the only one that says, okay, I'm going to be honest, then guess what? A lot more people start being honest. And so sometimes it just takes one person to be like, well, let's run it back, and learning how to do that in a positive way, because I'm a very emotional person, and learning that sometimes it comes out very emotional and people are like, whoa, I need you to back up a little bit. And so learning how to still be authentic to myself and my emotions, but also give myself the time to make sure, like, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm just popping off without thought or anything like that. So taking the time that is needed in every circumstance, and then standing up for people, standing up for what is right. If you, like I said, if you have a chance to have your voice heard, and somebody else doesn't, then you take the chance and you say, all right, I'm going to do it. And 9 times out of 10, I've found that people are willing to work with you, or there's that one time too where like miracles happen and everybody's like, no, this will never happen. And the next thing you know, everybody's doing what you asked because it actually was a good idea or whatever it is, And so taking those chances and knowing that if it doesn't work out, you can just hit the ground running, start over, and fix it. And so being that person for other people, allowing them to be able to come in and talk to me and be open with me, and then standing up for them when I need to is it's a huge part of leadership. But I'll be honest, EXP has kind of made that part easy too.
They do 100%. As a young leader in this company, I've had the privilege of stepping into this role. I think when I was around 22, I'm 25 right now. And from the support above me to my peers and colleagues, like I've had an immense amount of support from everybody. And it's enabled me to create such an authentic and deep connection with those that I serve. Because I don't really like to say like I manage people. I serve people. It comes from like a selfless aspect of it. And I always I call it the PPFs, the personal, professional, and financial alignments. Like, what can I do to help elevate your success, your experience here? And that's why I work so hard on cultivating these relationships. So I have a wealth of not only people, but tools, systems, information that I can serve people with too. And that's something that you and Tali, you and I've collaborated on for a couple of years now on that. So it's really great to have here.
Everybody needs a guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like we all got to have the guy. It's like you have a problem. Somebody hears a problem. You're like, wait, I got a guy. And you give them the name of the guy, and everybody needs a guy, And so I think I always try to be that person. And when you find another person, you say, heck yeah, this person is the guy. Let's introduce them to other people too.
Exactly. You know, and Brandon Dawson talks about the 4 M's: model, mimic, master, and multiply. And implementing those concepts into building the village that we have is really helped us create so much momentum behind it too. Because if you can model the concept, mimic it, master it, and then multiply and transfer that concept into other employees, they're going to be just as excited, and they're going to be acting as if they have equity in the company just as much as you do. You know, how do you get them to care as much as you care? Well, you're aligning all of these things for them and giving them the tools and the relationships and really putting their success forward. So I love that you touched on that. That's really good. Kaylie, for you, you are in a big dynamic team. You're in a mega team, SynOps team for Colorado. How do you make sure that you don't get lost in the momentum? And what's one thing that you learned about, claiming your own space in this industry?
Yeah, I love this. So I am on a local team. We've got I don't know how many people are actually on our team, but in the meetings, there's 25, 30 of us that are
You got a lot. You got a lot of people on your team.
We're actively in community as a team. There's probably 25, 30 of us. And I was thinking about this earlier, and I said, I think my leadership word is freedom, because I love walking into a room and learning from those that have gone before me, because I'm only in year 2.5 of being an agent. And so I'm always hungry to learn from those that have gone before me, and then be and how do I do that my way? And how do I do that as me? Because no one else is me. And that is our greatest asset in this life, is that you are the only one that was born as you, and you are the only one that will die as you. And so no one else gets to really dictate how you live or what you do more than you do. You are the only person that will spend every single day with for the rest of your life, even if you're married, even if you have parents, and so realizing that, I think my greatest asset to my team is my freedom. And I was in a team meeting the other day, and my managing broker, I guess he's not technically now that we're at EXP, but my team lead will say, was clients can feel your energy. And if you walk in this room like Kaylie does, and she's like, hey, what's up? Let's do this thing. You excited to buy a house? Let's get it going. They're going to be okay. If you're hi, this is the address, and here's the door. I opened it. Do you want me to write an offer? People feel how you show up in the world, and it's contagious. And so I think just even on my hard days, remembering when I show up that I get to be a gift or a burden in every room I walk into, and choosing to be that gift. But one other thing is, what I love about EXP is I have a local team, but then I'm also on Powerhouse, ran by Amy Gregory, and she's out of Arizona, and she has a powerhouse team of women, right? And then under her, I'm under Go Beth Key. And these two women are two of the top frontline qualifying recruiting agents at EXP. And what I loved about them, I interviewed 27 different agents from every brokerage that I could before I chose where to hang my license. And what I love about EXP, and what I love about hearing that you guys who work at EXP, it's that way from the inside, not just the outside, is that Glenn built this for us to be our own people, for us to be our own brand. We're not all just mini minions of Remax or Compass or something else where that is who we are supposed to be. EXP is the springboard for people to come in and say, yes, this is the business I want to do, but this is who I'm going to be while I do this business. And I think that has been a gift that at my local level, at the Powerhouse level, and at the Go Beth Key level, I just have so many levels that are reminding me this is your business. This is your book of business. This is your dream. This is your life. And so show up and run it the way that makes sense to you. And I think that also just being young and being different, I'm always asking questions, and the bravery to ask questions and being okay, how much joy has that process of prospecting brought you? And they're well, none. I'm okay, how much business has that process of prospecting brought you? And they're 3 deals. And I'm oh, great, this month? They're in the last 17 years. I'm then why are you doing it? And so I think just being brave enough to ask questions and realize that, yeah, a team is there to iron sharpens iron. And when you're part of a big team, use it, use the team, ask them questions, learn from them. Don't be shy. you join a team for a reason. And so use them as your asset, and then be your permission slip to them to remember that like this is their life that they're building as well.
That's so true. One of the things that Leo has said multiple times is that EXP gives you all of the tools to build the dream as big as you want. Build the dream as sizable as you can imagine is what we have here. And it's so great that you touched on that too, because even on my hardest days, because I do juggle a lot. For those of you that know me, know that I'm also the vice president for my NAREP chapter. I'm the vice president for young professionals. I'm chair for the Pride Network. And then I sit on like 6 different, not like government affairs, DEI, homeless initiative. Like I do a bunch of stuff on top of my 9 to 5 with EXP. And on my hardest days, I shift my how I speak to myself. Instead of saying like, oh, I have to do this, I say, I get to do this. Like I get this opportunity today to actually make a difference, to impact somebody, to connect, to collaborate, to synergize, to immerse myself into this community. Because before this, I was in the military for 3.5 years, and there was no diversity. I was the only woman in a male predominant environment. I was a truck driver, and I do not look like a truck driver. Okay. That was not what I wanted to do. And I hated it. I didn't know myself. And I realized how many negative habits I had to unlearn in order to claim my own space. I realized how negative I was towards myself. And that's kind of the environment that they cultivated with us. Cause they're very rough, and they don't like to be emotional or soft or really inclusive in that manner. So you're right though about that. And a lot of it is a mindset shift, how we speak to ourselves and how we show up for others. Because one thing about real estate, regardless of where you at, whatever you believe, representation on your transaction makes or breaks consumer experience every single time. And if you're showing up with a positive energy, a can-do attitude, and you're not like, I call it commission breath. If you're not like giving them that salesy, like, oh, I'm only in it for the money, people are going to want to gravitate with you. And then you don't really have to like decipher, okay, who is for me? These people are going to come to you. You're not, it's attracting rather than chasing. So I'm really glad that you touched on those points. But so I want to pass this to Ashley, because this kind of touches hand in hand with what we're talking about. Your entire life is about creating space, whether it's with cameras, campaigns, or building literal cabins in the trees. What does it mean to take up space, but also to invite others into it for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, creating space first for yourself, and building that enables you to create space for others. And, leadership roles, I'm sure we all know, identifying something in someone, or even if you don't identify it right away, but creating space for people in a way that makes them feel empowered, kind of like I said at the beginning, and comfortable and safe and welcome enough to be as authentic as they can be in whatever relationship that you're building with them. If it's a professional one, identifying something in that person and knowing kind of in the back of your mind, I really need to help this person feel as comfortable as possible for them to create space for themselves. Because I do think it's a silent invite that we are giving people as leaders, right? And saying, I'm giving you permission to do this if you choose to. And that can come in so many different forms. It can be literal with like people who just have untapped skills. I like recently thought of a employee I had a while back, and I was transitioning out of a position, and he was transitioning in, and he said, like, I can't believe that you like believe that I could do this. And I was like, you could always do this. You just needed to step into the space. And so, I didn't necessarily do anything except to get out of his way. But that can be, it can be something like, sexuality, or it can be something that's just professionally their skill set that you're letting them do. I think, but what's key in my opinion is making sure that you have space yourself and that confidence to encourage that in others. They go hand in hand.
I agree. And I feel like we're all so quick to fill up other people's cups before we fill up our own. I'm guilty of that. I will take the shirt off my back for somebody else, but then there's times where I struggle with my own self-love or filling up my own cup. And then I have experienced things I wouldn't say close to burnout, but I would say like not a physical exhaustion, but like a mental or spiritual, like I could sleep for 12 hours and still feel tired type of exhaustion. And a lot of that comes from not making the space up for yourself and taking that to going too far for others before your cup is full so that you can fully show up for them. And and like what you said, having that vision for him, like you believed in him and he was able to step into that role and also had the confidence and backing from you. You were like, no, like you've always been able to do this. I see this in you. And that's the great thing about leaders is you have the vision. And sometimes it's a vision that they don't see quite yet. And that's honestly how they primed me. I didn't think I was I didn't think that I could grow an organization to 20,000. If you would have asked me a year ago that this is what we were going to do, I wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't have even known where to start. But a lot of that came from leaders that inspire me who were like, no, we see that, we see you, and you could do that, And I think, like we were saying with the military, they didn't really implement those best practices for like self-regulation and taking care of yourself and prioritizing your mental health, because mental health wasn't really like a real thing. You know what I mean? I mean, it's always been real, but they kind of like knock it off like it's not something to take that seriously. So I think that's really great that you touched on that. That's a really good point to make. For Tali, you sometimes, like we were saying before, leadership can be quiet. What's one thing behind the scenes, like a moment that you're proud of that maybe no one saw, but you knew that made a big difference?
I think that it always, just to go off what Ashley had said too, is sometimes believing in someone until they believe in themselves. And I think that for me personally, somebody did it to me, right? And the way that you go, wait, like you believe I can do this? And you go, I can do this. And I keep making this joke for people that every report card, it would say that I was so smart, but I didn't apply myself. And just recently I made a joke, like they were so right. I was not applying myself. I just needed somebody to believe in me and show me like, I believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And there have been some employees that you go like, you just see that in them and they don't believe it. And so just constantly meeting with them and telling them like, hey, I believe this in you. You don't trust. I have one. I kept telling her, trust your instincts. You keep saying you don't trust your instincts. You're right every single time. I'm telling you, if you brought it to me, I wouldn't even check it probably at first, So it's like, trust your instincts. You have that. And eventually having her reach out to me one time and being like, I know I'm the best at this. And you're like, yay. Like, I knew you are. You always were the best at that. And it's letting people see that quality in themselves that makes them special, that authenticity, that spark, but also celebrating it, and making sure that it's not always about us. I think sometimes the most fulfilling thing is helping other people achieve their goals. And that is, you just think like, man, I mean, obviously we want to fight for ourselves and have our own goals and achieve all those. But helping other people also, it just, it changes the game completely. And like you were saying earlier, let's say everybody needs to have that person, right? It does become like a web. And then when you're authentic and you're kind and you do the right thing, you have this web of people who know who you are. Your reputation is what it is. And you have built other people that have that same belief in themselves, that same confidence. And sometimes when you're down, you never know when that person is going to be there to lift you up as well. And so I think it just is that snowball effect. And it's pretty amazing.
Seriously, I think for every speaking engagement that I'm at, I always say this. I say that success falls directly in the reciprocity of your ability to impact, problem solve, cultivate relationships, and consistently propel them forward. Mm-hmm. Regardless of where you're at, regardless of what you're doing, your success falls directly proportional to your ability to impact others. And for me, like what you were saying, I don't chase the recognition. I don't chase the numbers. I chase 4 words, and that is, you changed my life. If I can get you to say that, I will swim oceans. Like, I will do the most things that I can make pigs fly if you tell me those words. I don't care what it takes. Like, those are the words that I truly chase, because I know that everything else follows suit. Because like what Holly was saying, if you do the right thing, even when no one's watching, and like what Ashley was saying was like acting with that integrity because the image follows. It all interconnects, and it's so true. It seriously is. And so I'm really glad that you touched on that. And for Holly too, because Holly, you've trained leaders across the entire globe. What do you tell people who feel maybe like they have to shrink themselves in order to succeed?
I think first, you may be in the wrong room. Being in the right room, you don't shrink. People champion. And I think that anytime you're trying to find a way to conform, there's a challenge. So what is it that you're trying to bring to the table? As everybody wants to be a leader. Everybody wants to put their hand up and have the title and all that kind of stuff. I love the people who lead without a title. I love the people who are willing to share who they are in such a way that is for the mutual benefit of those around them. And I think that true character, I appreciate that we've talked about brand and we've talked about reputation, but for me, character is where it's at always, because your character is what shows up when you're not in the room. And so for folks that are thinking that they need to shrink who they are, my question would be, are you in the right room with the people that are there to champion you? And if you are, okay, then my next question is, what is it that you're solving for? Because it's okay to be in a room where you don't feel prepared. It's okay to show up and you're like, wow, I'm not quite ready for this. We're all in positions we're not quite ready for until we are. And that's okay. So it's really about understanding the environment and what is driving that feeling that you might have, that gut check of like what's going on. So if you do feel like, oh, I got to make myself small. All right, I'm going to hit pause on that and answer me. Are you in the right room? Are you with people that will champion you? And what problem are you really seeking to solve? And is it about you, or is it about the greater good of the people that you're serving? And if it's about you, okay, then you may be in the wrong room. Like you may be chasing something that's not quite there. But if you're truly coming from a place of I want to contribute, cool, you show up. That willingness comes forward, and you don't have to shrink when you're showing up genuinely.
That's so true. Yeah. And something I've recognized too is when you are in the wrong rooms is that people will shrink your gift to the size of what they can stand. And a lot of times it's justifying their shortcomings, not intentionally. They're not intentionally trying to shrink you, but on a deeper subconscious level. If you're doing more than what they've been able to do, or you've done something that they've maybe deemed impossible, is to the biological nature of who we are as humans, generally will tend to shrink it. And it's not even with malice intent. It's just psychological nature of those things. And like you said, if you're in rooms where people are going to shrink your gift to the size of what they can stand, you're more than likely in the wrong room. So I appreciate you touching on that too. For Kaylie, has there been a moment for you where being out and real has actually earned more trust with your clients, your teammates? What happened? Tell me a little bit more about that experience.
Yeah, I think, like we've all said, every moment you choose authenticity develops trust. And I was thinking about this the other day. If I show up to somewhere and I pretend to be someone that I think that this person wants me to be, and then they choose to work with me based on that, and then we get under contract and they're like, wait, you have a wife? Wait, you like what? And then if at any point that you're working with a client, they feel like you've lied to them, your trust is broken. And like we've talked about, like character and authenticity precede any room you go into. And they are truly the greatest currency and assets in your life. And so I'm fine with someone knowing exactly who I am and not liking me, because I lived 26 years of my life having everyone else like me and hating myself. And when I came out, I made a decision that I will no longer do that. I will no longer do that. My one thing is truth.
Yeah.
It's truth. And I think that serves me well also, like outside of just the sexuality topic. Like my one thing is truth with my clients. I'm not going to hold back if I'm like, I don't think that this is the right house for you. Like, I think that this is dangerous. Look at this situation. Look at that situation. And quite frankly, it's a tip that one of my people on my team gave me, was like, one of the quickest ways you can build trust with someone is when you point out things that aren't perfect. Because they're like, oh, you're not playing pretend. You're not just trying to get the sale. You're not just trying to pull one over on me. And they can feel that. It also, buying a home is an emotional, stressful situation for every person that goes through it. And we are front and center of one of the biggest life transformations in people's lives. They do it about 3 times on average in their lifetime. And we get to be a conduit through that process. And if you know it, like, we all know when you're around someone who's faking it or being pretend, it feels yucky. Like, it's like, oh, like, what is off here? But like, you always know there's something off. And I just value people too much to do that anymore. And I think that it honors them, it honors their process, and it keeps it centered on them, because I'm like, this is who I am, this is how I am, this is how I show up, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm gonna be honest. And it takes a while to get to that point of, right, I think we're all recovering people pleasers in our own way, of being like, well, I want them to like me. And when we're growing up, we have to choose authenticity over, or connection over authenticity. And at many points in our lives, we are faced with that crossroads of like, I could go this way and I could have more friends, or I could be more liked on the outside, or I could go this way and I might lose some clout, but I'm going to gain my true tribe. And I think one of the gifts of adulthood is being able to choose yourself and trust that the chips will fall where they may.
That's so true. I love that. And I always say that even if I lost everything today being myself, I really, to gain it back, I already have the experience. So I'm not starting from ground zero like I did the first time, and, when you do choose yourself and you choose that authenticity, you do start to surround yourself with those that love you for you. And sometimes honestly, every time, those relationships are always more fulfilling. I've always been way more, like, this is the most fulfilling chapter of my entire life. And to say that, like, I've discovered that now at 25 than 55 or 65, that some of our peers that have waited so long to finally just let that go. And it's truly, I'm just so grateful for that. And a lot of that stems from surrounding myself from people like you guys, who have taught me how to be myself so early on into my career, so that we could shine differently, but also ultimately empower others to do the same, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think there's that saying, what good is it to gain the whole world but lose your soul? And I feel like I had that. Like, I was at this point in my life where I was like, I could marry the pastor, I could pretend, I could play this game in someone else's life. And then one day I was like, but I wasn't meant to be that person, or I'd be that person.
Right.
Like, if I was meant to be that person, I would have been that person.
Yeah.
I just don't believe whatever cosmic being is out there made a mistake in creating me. And yeah.
I agree with that. This next one, I want to open it up for the whole group. And I want to start with Ashley, because I'm genuinely curious of your perspective on this. What is something that you thought you once had to hide that has now become your power? Throughout your journey in your whole career.
Yeah. I love that question. I think for me, it would be owning my femininity. I'm so proud to be a woman. And I think it's challenging sometimes. I also think that it's fun to, understand, like, I think mainly professionally, like, the feedback and the reaction I get. I mean, I work in a mainly media production, specifically production. I'm like, come from a very heavy television production background, like traditional TV. And it's like 95% men. And now a lot of the producer roles are women. But I was in my 20s when I was like really in that world. So not only was I surrounded by men, but I was surrounded by men who thought they were in more powerful roles than me. And producers fall in this weird middle ground where you're like, you are their boss in theory, but they don't really understand that the way that it's really happening every day. So it's all the challenges. But knowing and feeling comfortable that I can present a certain way, but also feel very feminine is something that I continue to really enjoy exploring. Because even my wife will say, like, when we meet new people, she's like, oh my gosh, Ashley is the most feminine. And you probably wouldn't guess that just from the way that I look, but understanding that you can do both, or three things, or four things, or however you want to present and however you want to feel on the inside, you can do all of those things. So I think owning my femininity for me would be right up there. And it does that has presented a lot of both difficult challenges and also really rewarding things that have come along the way in my professional and personal life. Kind of seeing how that plays out and how I change every year with that as well.
I really love that. And I personally relate to you because we look, I also I wear a lot of bow ties and stuff. So when people see me around and if I don't say nothing, like I'll get misgendered or something, but then I open my mouth, I'm like, hi. And then they're like, whoa,
Right.
whoa, that, so I totally get that. And it took me years of struggling with my femininity and learning how to embrace it and that becoming my own superpower as well. Cause I think there's societal norms and gender role expectations. And I realized that when I had long hair, more people opened the door for me. When I had longer hair, men treated me different. You know what I mean? And now that I have short hair, I'm in this middle gray area where I love being a woman and I love my femininity, but it depends on who it is, whether they respect it or not entirely. And that's just subject to who I'm talking to that day or what the situation is.
Yeah, I think that when if you're presenting a certain way, that there's an assumption from somebody on the other side that you are therefore hiding the opposite. And that's really not true at all. You're just exploring both. Like you're being able to do both. I always laugh when we go shopping, I'm like, well, I get to shop on both sides of the store, which is
right.
I can do the whole thing.
Me too. I'm the same.
So it's not hiding, but it does take a long time to learn that you can present one way and not hide what's on the inside.
100%. Yeah. And I think it also with what people expect out of you, because I think sometimes people expect more masculinity from me, if they don't really know me, but then people who do get to know me understand my femininity and allow me the space to lean more into that without feeling bad about it, because I've had all kinds of crazy comments oh, I forgot you were a girl, or all just kinds of things that obviously because of the way I present. Right. And so I'm really glad that you touched on that because that's something I personally relate to. What about you, Holly? What is something that you thought that you once had to hide that actually turned out being your superpower?
I had to hide me. When I first came out, it was a small town. I had to hide me. And I was also moving up in leadership at the state association. And so I used a lot of words around my family that were not easy to understand that I had a family. Some people didn't know I had a partner and that we were raising children and things like that. So that opportunity to be unequivocally me, but also be able to talk about my wife and our kids that we have, it's a wonderful thing and definitely a superpower because I've learned so much from them. Getting to be in their lives is next level. So that opportunity is really special, and definitely makes me. I get to be more rather than less, and I think that that's the biggest thing when I look at anytime we get to talk about ourselves or be with people, share who we are. Getting to share all of it is pretty special.
Super. Yeah, that is. It seriously is. And it is because you did come from you have seen a lot of the historical events that have happened through the LGBTQ plus history. You have lived through it, firsthand. And especially being in that small town and having to feel like tiptoe around like who you are and still figuring out like who you are and who's going to support you. And it's a lot of weight to bear on
For
yourself.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's one of those where I don't think it's ever easy. However, and this is one of the things that we laugh about quite a bit. My wife's name is Jen. And so we support locally. We have a county fair and we have a lot of kids who are in FFA and raise animals to show at the fair and so forth. Every year I get letters to Holly and Ben and not Jen. And so we know enough people that I've actually put out on social media. And I'm like, oh, Holly and Ben are back to support the kids. and the fair manager has become a good friend. So every time she sends our tickets to the fair to go to the livestock auction, she's like, to Holly and Jen, AKA Ben, see you soon. And so what I appreciate is we have been unequivocally ourselves. We've done it with humor. And it's like, oh, Holly and Ben are showing up. But also people recognize that we're going to show up and be ourselves, and just that little error on, a child's part. Okay.
Right.
To be better and show up. So,
but that's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's great that you were able to turn it into humor too. That's actually really funny.
It is. I text everyone like, Holly and Ben are back. Let's go.
Right.
It's fair time.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, what about you, Kaylie? Is there what was something that you thought you once had to hide?
I think we've kind of already touched on hiding my sexuality for 26 years. Another thing that I felt I had to hide is I also have dyslexia, and I have ADHD, and these are things that I'm still just learning, don't define me, but they do make up a part of who I am. And quite frankly, my ADHD, I think, is why I'm a good agent and not a good employee. But realizing that all of my differences are welcome to be celebrated. And they don't need to be celebrated by everyone, but they need to be celebrated by me. And I think that also just realizing that I think the time in the world that I was born is a superpower. I think that one of my favorite sayings is I was made for such a time as this. And that comes from a story in the Christian Bible of a woman who stood up and was like, you will not do this to my people anymore. And she could have been murdered. She could have been killed. She could have been beheaded. And she was like, I don't care, because this injustice that I see, no more, not under my name, not under me having a voice that I can speak out about it. And I just think that is my superpower, that sometimes we look around and we're like, oh, woe is me. The world sucks. Everything's so hard. What is happening? This political climate, our president hates us and just wants us all to disappear. And I'm like, but what if every single one of us is here for such a time as this? What if none of this was on accident? What if we were actually put here for such a time as this? What if all of this was working for our highest and greatest good and not against us? I had an amazing last year of real estate, did 25 transactions, got to serve 25 families. It was rad. And then I had the lowest month of my entire career. Every single one of my deals I went from amazing income to zero. And I really had to sit with that. And I was like, okay, I gave myself a weekend to play poor me. I got super sick too. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to give myself this weekend to be like, this sucks. And then we're going to get up and do something about it. And when I was sitting there asking myself that, what if this was happening for me and not to me? I was like, what a gift to really sit and be like, is this what I want to continue to do? Do I want to fight to stay in this? And I sat there and I was like, wait, I get to wake up every day and make people's dreams come true. I get to wake up every day and make something that's been on people's vision boards for a year, 5 years, a decade, for the first time in their generation. I get to do that. And I get to be out and proud. And I get to my neighbor hangs a straight pride flag in front of their house, but I live in a country where I get to hang a pride flag in my house if I want to. Like, I get to be married to my wife. I get to have children with her. I get to educate people and be a different family that people are like, we have so many people that both of us were raised like very on the other side of where we live now, on the political spectrum, on the religious spectrum. And almost every week we have someone reach out to us and are like, I was taught to hate you, but I love you. And like, it's really making me think about things. Like, I love you. And I'm so happy you guys are pregnant. And I want the best for you. And I was taught that I should hate you. But just you guys showing up in the way you are and showing that you're living a life and you're human has changed the way I see people like you. And so I think I'm sitting in that right now. Like, what if the thing that I thought was so hard was like the family I was born into, the religion I was taught, the stories I've been sold, the political climate we're in today. But what if it's our superpower? What if it's exactly what we needed to be here today?
And that mindset shift right there puts you in control again.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I really love that you touched on that too. That's really good. What about you, Tali?
I would say that I haven't always been a nice person in my life. And I think that was because I always felt the need to protect myself, right? And authenticity has given me the ability to say, I can be the kind of person I want to be in every situation. And it doesn't matter if people accept that. It doesn't matter if they allow it, if they like it, none of that matters. I can be who I feel that I'm supposed to be. And as long as that, as lots of us have said, as long as we're keeping with good character, as long as, we are going towards a goal, our North Star, our everything, we're saying, this is what I'm going towards, this is what I'm living for. It just all takes care of itself. And so being able to be authentic and be kind to people my way has also given me a way of learning to use my voice, to let it still be strong, but to be kind with it, to listen, to make sure that if I am not aligned with certain things, that I'm listening to what other people are saying, because you never know when you go, oh, wait, that is going to make me change, how I feel about this, or that changes my direction a little bit. And so just doing all of that and making sure that I'm true to myself and being kind through it all has been the biggest I think blessing in my life, but also saying like, wow, I used to always have to fight for everything. And then things, sometimes you go, wait, I didn't even have to be mean to anybody. Like, I didn't even have to yell. I didn't have to do anything. I was just nice and people like agreed with me. That's amazing. But just being able to be there and be like, you know what, you don't have to protect yourself. You always, being vulnerable opens up a whole new world to you. So
yeah, no, that's incredible. And as we come to the closing portion of this, I want to wrap this up with a fire round of the last question. And I want to kick this off. I want Holly to start us here. What would you tell someone who is watching this today, who's afraid to lead with their truth? What advice would you give them today?
Take a deep breath and find your champion. Just take a deep breath and find your champion. And we're in every corner. There's lots of people that are fully ready to help you succeed. And leadership, you don't ever have to wait for a title. You don't ever have to wait to be asked. Sometimes it's about empowering others to see more in themselves than they did yesterday. And that might be the essence of great leadership, is starting there.
I agree. Ashley?
Yeah, that was great, Holly. I think, don't underestimate the baby steps. Just take, like, sometimes when you think about something massive, you're like, well, how do I do that? Like, that's too big. Break it down to steps and just take the first step, and you will get rewarded in some way. And then take that motivation and take the next step. And then all of a sudden, 10 steps down the road, you're like, oh my God, I'm literally living it. So baby steps are good.
I agree. And what to Holly said, and you as well, I think for everything I've ever seen come to fruition in my life existed in here long before it did in the physical. So if you're somebody that wants to be a leader, you should be acting like a leader without the titles, like you were saying, because inevitably those actions are going to align you to the opportunities that are going to put you on the platforms to expand your impact and expand your touch and how many people that you can actually help and serve, but not necessarily waiting for them to tell you when you're ready, and just doing it and doing it scared. Like, we're never always fully prepared for that. So I agree. Thank you guys. What about Kaylie? What do you got?
Yeah, I would just say live like you're dying, because you are. It's literally the only guarantee is that one day you won't wake up. One day you will not have breath in your lungs anymore. And when we get to that end, and if you get the gift to know you're close to the end and you get to look back on your life, do you want to look back and say, I lived a life I loved? Or do you want to look back and say, I lived a life in shame and fear and doubt and insecurity? Because I don't want that for you, not for one more day. So live your fullest, most authentic, most alive, most beautiful life. And it won't always be the easiest path to take, but I promise you, being the fullness of who you are will always be the best and right path to take.
I love that. Yeah, it's so, so true. I agree. What about Tali?
So I would just say don't ever give up. I think that one thing that life has taught me is that nothing lasts forever. Good times, bad times, nothing lasts forever. It's all going to end. So that just means during the good times, enjoy it. During the bad times, hold on. Good times are coming. So you just, don't give up, believe in yourself, and believe in your voice. If you have something to say, then do what you can to make sure that your voice is heard. And like Holly and everyone said too, there's people around here that will definitely want to help your voice be heard too. So if you have something to say it.
I agree. I always, like we said before, authenticity is the highest form of currency. And you're right, we are on borrowed time. And I think if it scares you, freaking do it. You got to do it and challenge yourself to think bigger, and connect with people. Like reach out to your peers, connect, synergize, collaborate, and focus on putting the good out, being somebody like a connector. I always say, like, I'm like glue. I want to be the bridge to propel people forward. And regardless of where you are, or what title that you have, focus on getting yourself immersed in that community. Because Holly said this a long time ago, a year ago on one of our panels, is that the greatest form of impact you can make starts at the local level. So get connected with your community, get connected with people, and leverage EXP and our leadership, because there has never been a day in my experience where I haven't had a leader, regardless of their chain, no matter how far up or how far down, that didn't extend a hand to me and say, I'm here to help. What's your dream? How can I back you up? How can I serve you? What can I do to support you? And I've been able to take those principles and apply them and leverage the tools that they've given us. And so for those of you that are listening too, reach out to all of us. We are all so accessible. We want to hear you, want to be a part of your lives. And for you guys here, I just want to thank you all, but not just for your words, but for your presence here today. Because as we know, pride isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about leading from the heart so that others who are listening know that they can too. And for those of you listening, I want you to know that this is what leadership looks like. And let this be your permission to slip. You're not too loud and you're not too soft. You are so, so powerful. So go out there today and lead with identity, not apology. Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Woo!
Woo!
Thank you.